This week on the podcast, is it the end for Google? We battle it out. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6- and 7-figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host, Claire Hancott, is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week, I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Now, I'm not a horticultural fanatic, as you know, Claire.
Okay, yeah.
But this time of the year is very pretty, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. We've got cherry blossom on at the end of our driveway, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. You can just see out the kitchen window, and yeah, I love it. And the flowers in the garden are all coming out. And we live surrounded by bungalows in the woods, so we are like trees and sort of greenery galore. And I absolutely love this time of year and autumn. I'm not sure which is my favourite, but
I also don't like it.
You hate it, don't you?
Why?
Because
I can't get
I
my
went out
car
this morning and I actually don't think I can see your car on the driveway for the amount of cherry blossom that's fallen on the top of it. So yeah, that drives you mad, doesn't it? You're a bit of a leaf fanatic.
It's
though,
the same
aren't
in
you?
the thing is with living around here is that it's just an all year round situation, and now the leaf blower is broken and it needs to be serviced as well, because it's just you're just walking crap into your house all day long as well. I
was very happy with my
the good
weekend.
things are also bad things.
I was very happy with my little weekend triumph, though, that you told me not to bother getting a leaf blower out. It's broken. It's man's work, you said through the window at me. It's man's work. There's no way you're going to be able to get that going. And lo and behold, got the little petrol leaf blower going. Did a good job, didn't I?
Yeah.
My man's work.
You did.
Yeah, you have to take it back. Independent woman.
Right, let's move on to this week's news story of the week. So you're not going to believe it, Claire.
What?
The UK has slipped 3 places to number 23 in this year's World Happiness Index.
Well, do you know what? I do believe it because I live in this country and everybody's bloody miserable. So I am not surprised.
Also, actually, I don't know how many that's out of, and I haven't got the details in front of you. It might be 23 out of like 150, in which case it's quite good. It might be 23 out of 24. You just don't know, do you?
Yeah,
no,
that's
it's
true.
a bit pointless.
I think they had Afghanistan on there and they were like 175 or something.
I imagine that's not
or was that Syria?
Very happy place to live. But
no.
Yeah. So Do
you know what really surprised me was Mexico was number 10. And
Mind you, if you had fajitas and burritos, I mean, just the food alone. I mean,
what happened to your voice then? Your tea is just fajitas, burritos.
What?
You've got a completely different accent.
I mean, just the food alone. Food plus weather plus, you'd think...
And the beaches.
Pop it all in. Why shouldn't they be happy? What's your view?
I think there's a lot of crime and a lot of poverty there. So
you think just because they're being locked up as they're going through the border now?
Yeah, maybe they went and stood in one of the main cities or something and asked this question, or perhaps they were asking people, with only internet access that are in a certain demographic, because, I don't know. That really surprised me. But yeah, so if you want to be more happy, you don't necessarily need to go to Denmark. You can go to Mexico instead.
Well, we haven't mentioned Denmark, so I don't know what that's all about.
Oh, Denmark was number 1. Was it Denmark or Finland? Finland. I've got Denmark in the brain because of all the Trump and Vance stuff.
I don't know where to go. That
on.
was my next question. I was going to ask you what that was, so you already know. You've cheated, have you, today? Cheated.
Oh, this is dead up my street, though. I love a bit of social politics.
It doesn't make good listening, though.
No.
So, yeah, Claire's jumping the gun, but Finland topped the table. But more importantly, 8 years in a row.
Yes.
Top of the table, don't know why. With Denmark second, which definitely confirms that you don't need sun to be happy, as I think you do.
Yeah, and this is what I said to you, wasn't it? Because I think obviously all the Scandinavian countries are at the top. I think the top 4, it's like Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and then I think Norway was like number 6 or something. So Norway slips a little bit, but still very good. But yeah, the general consensus in this country is whenever anybody says I want to go to another country, they're like, oh, it's warmer. But it's like, well, hello, you obviously don't need warmth to be happy, because all these Scandinavian countries are absolutely freezing all the time and don't get much sunlight in the winter, but yet they're still happy. So anyone that claims they've got SADS, and I know you claim you've got SADS, this like seasonal affective deficit syndrome or whatever it's called.
It's official.
Yeah, you get sad in the winter, happy in the summer. It must be absolute bullshit, because
actually it's not,
these countries
because
don't get it.
It's to do with like sunlight, and actually the Finland and Denmark and places like that, they have really long days of sunlight, don't they?
In the
really long. Well, all year round, because they're still
they're
still at the top of the. So they must be. No,
I'm actually looking at Simon
but
now.
They must have longer than we have during the.
No,
What? How long's that?
Shorter.
How long?
Because of
How
the
many
way
hours of sunlight do they have?
the Earth tips on its axis. So in the winter, they're on the side that is completely away
It's
from the
tipping
sun.
in the other direction.
And they barely get any daylight.
Oh, so they have both. Oh, they have
both. They have
more
really
extremes than
short
us.
days in the winter and really long days in the summer.
Well, there you go then. There you go. Do you know what's really interesting is that, to give us a little bit of a pep, but we might be at 23, but the USA are at 24. They're actually below us.
Yeah.
Which we tend to think that governments get elected based on economic performance, but actually well-being and happiness seems to be what reigns.
And it's really interesting because on LinkedIn, the narrative is constantly like, we should put politicians in charge of this country. We should put entrepreneurs in charge of this country. But, you know, look what's happening. America are more unhappy than us. And you wouldn't have even thought that was possible for a Western country. So
no. But in fairness, I mean, it is true that it's got to be a little bit government-led, because you go to these Scandinavian countries and everything's impeccable. Their public service is impeccable. Their roads are impeccable. Like, it's going to make you happier, isn't it? Because they've got the shit together.
We were talking about a book written by a palliative care nurse, weren't we? And she was like the 5 things that repeatedly people say when they're on their deathbed. And one of them was that dying people say that they wish that they understood that happiness was a choice. Yeah. And I think when you hear a survey like this, you should really take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, they. How did you put it? You didn't put it very poignantly there, Clara.
But they could have chosen to be happy.
Yes, I wish I'd chosen to be happier.
Yeah.
Which indicates that they only realise on their deathbed that happiness was a choice.
Yeah, and I think the younger you realise that happiness is a choice, the happier you will be, and the more fulfilled your life will be. Because the country's shit, and there's potholes everywhere, and our politicians are plonkers, and there's crooks and idiots and murderers and rapists, and there's so many bad things, but there's also so many good things to be happy about, and literally just forcing a smile on your face makes you feel better every day.
Cherry blossom alone, eh?
The cherry blossom alone, yeah.
All right, let's move on to this week's deep dive. So, Claire, we decided to bring this from our car to the podcast, didn't we?
Yeah.
You said to me, we were having a conversation in the car, and you said, stop talking to me. We need to discuss this on the podcast because it's that interesting.
It's very, very good.
Basically, it started with me saying that if I understood stock markets and investing in the stock market, which I don't do, I would short Google/Alphabet stock now for the next 20 years, because I reckon that I would make an absolute fortune, because I think Google's business model is now broken and only going in one direction.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with you or not. I think it's a really interesting perspective. I did suggest that we maybe just put a couple of £1,000 in it, nothing too much like our house or anything like that. But so the concept behind this is that, you know, we were Googling stuff, and see the irony, we said we were Googling it, we were using a search engine to find something out, and Simon instinctively every time now goes to ChatGPT. You don't even really use Google anymore, do you? You just go and ask ChatGPT.
Generally that's the place. Yeah, ChatGPT gives me a curated answer and does kind of, I guess, what's becoming very clear and very quickly. And I will be probably ahead of the curve with this compared to most people. So I recognise that there's a long curve, and people might not take my view and go in the direction that I've gone with it. But I, you know, because I'm a busy business person, actually, to cut out, the best way to describe it is that you go to Google, and Google's just going to serve you up a long tail of lots of ideas or suggestions, but you've got to then do the PA/admin work to then curate that and bring that together into an answer that you want. Whereas AI or ChatGPT or any other search engine is effectively doing that for you and giving you a very curated answer. Now, initially, I kind of was a bit skeptical of that because the answers were very short and could be manipulated in various other things. But since ChatGPT have released deep research that blows me away, I can have an entire 10-page document written for me in the form of an entire study that goes into much more detail. It makes me feel, just gives me a lot more confidence in the outcome. But what they're doing is they're taking all of those things that they've searched and they're actually analysing and giving me the pros and cons about everything and actually giving me a verdict on the whole thing.
And when you're using ChatGPT, they do give you the links to the websites that they're taking it from. But what's the reason to go to the website now? If ChatGPT has sort of hashed it up for you and given it to you, what are you going to get from going on the website? So you've either got to be really, really interested or very skeptical and want to validate it. But we had a quick look, and I think it was 55% of search traffic is now through ChatGPT, and Gemini, which is the Google version of it, I think had 15%, something around those numbers. They're not exact numbers, but they are pretty much in the ballpark.
Didn't we? I didn't know you were going to say this. I actually said to you, I wonder how many people are actually searching on ChatGPT, and actually the numbers were already quite big, weren't they?
Huge
moved
number.
Away quite quickly.
I also am a little bit sceptical of the numbers, as always. I think I look at numbers and I think, well, hang on, what's really happening in the detail here? And one of the things that I know is I sit with ChatGPT open on my laptop all day long. If I'm writing an email, I copy it into ChatGPT to do the spelling mistakes, correct the grammar, for example. So is that counting as a search? We're writing a book at the moment. And so again, every paragraph has gone into ChatGPT to try and, write it in a slightly more copyrighty way and fix the grammar, fix the spelling, that type of thing. So I'm also a little bit skeptical of how much additional traffic is going through ChatGPT that's counting towards use of ChatGPT that perhaps is not actual search traffic that could have gone to Google. But I mean, Google's responded with Gemini, haven't they? But Gemini is just not that popular. I've actually got the Gemini and the ChatGPT app on my phone, and I just don't like Gemini. I really want to use it because I do like Google. I like the ecosystem. I like how it works. I like, Google Chrome. I love all of that. But I just don't like the way that Gemini feels a bit businessy. It doesn't quite have that sort of light-hearted, informal approach. And it's slow. You put something in Gemini and it takes 30 seconds to come back to you, and Google is quicker.
ChatGPT is quicker.
ChatGPT is quicker. Sometimes ChatGPT is quicker, actually. The traffic goes through...
can be slow as well at times.
If you're on the free version on ChatGPT, it's very slow.
Even on the paid one.
But I think it's interesting because now Google, if you're on a Google page and you search for something, most of the searches as default will show the Gemini response at the top.
Yes. So it's all Google are already doing their AI summary at the top as well.
And then you'll just have the normal Google responses below. But what I think is really interesting is that ChatGPT, I think, is a choice. You've got to be comfortable with technology and use ChatGPT actively, whereas Gemini is now being used as the default within Google, which I'd say, anybody that goes on the internet is probably comfortable using Google. So therefore, is over time the use of Gemini going to outstrip ChatGPT just because it's the default?
And that's the debate, isn't it? And I wonder whether Google have just been too sluggish and too late on this one, which is a worry because I certainly know.
It's not what you'd expect to say about Google, the world's biggest technology company.
It goes to show that, you couldn't even imagine that organisation or that monopolistic approach being de-seated. But like anything in industry, when 20 years goes past, things can move on. And in technology, we've seen big players be de-seated, haven't we, quite quickly. So this is the first time that I genuinely don't think any amount of money or power, which is what I've always thought would always prevail, is going to save them on the basis that they've been too sluggish to market with this. And I just think every decent podcast I listen to, if every podcaster that I'm listening to in the business and property sector are saying the same thing that I'm saying, they're saying they don't go to Google anymore, they go to ChatGPT, and they're telling their hundreds of thousands of audiences the same thing, and that message is getting out there in terms of word of mouth and everything else, I think it's worrying.
I do agree with you.
It's worrying. For them, for Google.
I think if you also look at some of Google's annual reports and things like that, the software and the phone market they are putting more into that. If you think 10 years ago, who had a Google phone? But now we go to the Odeon because we've got limitless cars, and there's always lots of adverts for the Google phones and some of the technology they're called Google Pixels or something. Yeah. But what I think we're really talking about here is what is going to happen to Google's ad revenue.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, when you go onto Google, the people at the top are the people that pay the most. And then Google money per click. So somebody must click on that link and you go through to their website, and then that is how it's charged, pay per click. Yep. It's the very fundamental basis that Google was built on in terms of its revenue. But what is going to happen when people are using Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever it is that they choose to use? How do Google monetize that? Because absolutely, Google, we see it with Google at the moment. They show the Gemini, the AI response at the top, and then they show the links below, and there's still some paid ad links below.
Yeah.
But who is getting down to that paid ad links? Because Gemini's just answered your question.
Yeah.
There is literally no need to click on a link and go through to a website anymore.
Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot of this across the marketing world at the moment about how to prepare your business for this, because you're absolutely right. I at the moment, I can't see how ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever creates the curated response can monetize in an advertising perspective that space, because the second that you manipulate that answer for advertising money is the second your business is dead from a credibility perspective.
Because
it simply
people
can't
won't trust it.
It simply can't happen. And I think even from a regulatory perspective, if you look at Google, you know that those pay-per-clicks are ads because they say ad next to them. They have to say ad. They have to say sponsored. They have to be clear that they're advertisements and they're paid to be there. They're not the best response to what you're asking. I think, the whole model of large language models, the whole credibility goes out the window the second that they take money in exchange for forcing the wrong answer into you. And I think that's a scary dilemma for Google, isn't it?
And also not just Google, but thinking about business owners,
especially.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to drive people to our website, because when they get on our website, they can find out more about us. They can see what we do. They can see the products and services. And we have all these light boxes that pop up saying subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. If nobody's got a reason to go to our website anymore, if Gemini can just hash up for people, give me a good accountant that can do X, Y, and Z, and there's no reason for them to come to our website anymore, how do we capture people's email addresses?
Well, the biggest problem at the moment, and this is where I'm not pretending to be any sort of marketing guru with this, but I've consumed a lot of content from marketing experts around gearing your company up for this. And it comes back to that age-old SEO thing, which is AI is going to pull data from very, very long-standing, very credible, very deep websites / content. It's going to be looking across entire platforms, looking for your business to be prolific in its industry beyond any other business there in terms of being the thought leader or the expert there. And then it will serve you up as the answer or part of the curated answer for that. I think this is a little bit sad because this probably changes the game massively from what we've seen in the last 20 years, where starting a business has been, if you had money, if you had VC capital money, very easy, because actually you put big bucks behind a business, you stick a load of advertising dollars behind it, and you can wind forward 10 years of established business there. This actually changes the game completely for those businesses and for big VC startups, because if you can't cheat the system of the establishment.
Do you mean from an SEO perspective?
If AI, let's say if AI served answers start to completely eradicate search, then it's those long established businesses that start to then retake the mantle that perhaps they had nipped away at them by new businesses who had the bigger pockets for advertising. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is a really interesting concept. So you're essentially saying that new businesses can't cheat the system anymore with pay-per-click and SEO, artificial SEO, and that you believe that AI would give more weight to long-standing websites that have consistently pumped out credible.
Well, it has to be. It simply has to be. If AI is your best assistant ever, nobody goes to do their research on an entire industry and picks the business that launched 6 months ago.
Okay,
who has no track record, no reviews, no.
How does AI make its money?
Well, this is I don't think I'm not going to answer that. I'm not even going to have an opinion on it because I don't think they know at the moment yet. I think there's a big worry, isn't there, in the AI world, that the whole of AI is as a search engine, because AI is more, we're just talking about the search engine world a bit. I don't know whether there is a monetization model other than you pay your £20 a month for access to it, which is, fairly substantial. If everyone in the world needs it / uses it, it becomes a fairly big business model for the one that leads the way with that. But it won't touch the surface of advertising.
Yeah, it won't touch the surface when it comes to the ad revenue. Well, and what is really, I think what's really nice about when you're on ChatGPT and Gemini and things like that at the moment is they're clutter free. There's no ads, and actually it just feels really nice to be in that space. And don't get me wrong, I understand in the background, there might be ads and there might be algorithms and things like that, but when you're in the interface, it feels clutter free, clean, and actually feels just really nice to not be sold to for a couple of minutes. But if they start taking that away, because obviously when you're on a Google browser, you have like down the right hand side, you have like picture adverts pop up for products you might be interested in based on previous search and things like that. And is that going to start happening in my ChatGPT app now? Because that's not bloody big enough on my phone. I don't want that.
Probably unlikely. I mean, it doesn't happen in your WhatsApp app, does it? And they I don't even know how they monetize WhatsApp, but somehow they do. I think they do it through WhatsApp Business and ads and broadcast messages and things like that. I can't see them monetizing it in the traditional ways because I just think it wouldn't be consumer centric and it would turn everybody off and it would lose trust. So. But
give us some numbers, Simon. What sort of revenue are we talking about that might be at risk for Google?
So this is where I think we've sort of set the scene. I think the big question is, going back to my question about shorting Google, is where's this money going to go? There's an enormous amount of money being spent. And let's say hypothetically in my world that this money, the trail here I see is people go down the AI route. Mm-hmm. And therefore what happens is that businesses start to get a really poor return on investment on their pay-per-click because they won't know that Google's a problem until they start to get a bad return on investment. Their return on ad spend starts to really drop, which is inevitably what would be the outcome. And therefore, they then start to pull the ads and pull their revenues because it's just simply not working. And we've seen this before. I saw this with Facebook. When Facebook first started, I could plow money into Facebook. I could get 50 leads for X amount of money. Within 4 years, I got almost 0 leads. Because of the proliferation of it, because of the change in demographics in it, because of the different platforms that came out across Instagram, Snapchat, various other things, people just disappeared and the ads didn't work anymore. And we could see this in Google, and I pulled the ad money. So the numbers for Alphabet are massive. So Alphabet own Google, and obviously search is just one part of it. And let's not forget there is a massive. I said, they've already protected themselves because they own YouTube. And I don't particularly see YouTube's revenues changing because that's a different model. It's a TV advertising model. That's fine. And I think it's clever that they
actually the YouTube as a TV channel, the likes of Channel 4, for example. I mean, it's not what we watch, but the likes of Channel 4 Hollyoaks, more people now watch Hollyoaks on YouTube than they do on the Channel 4 platform and on a normal TV. So I actually think that the future of TV, I can 100% see YouTube starting to incorporate some of the Apple content and Paramount content and things like that maybe at some point as well, and then becoming actually an aggregator of content for some of the big guys as well, because they're doing it with TV channels. So I don't think it's such a step for them to now do it with a movie house or something like that. But yeah, I think take YouTube out of it because that's just such a different business that is hugely growing, and potentially that will protect Alphabet.
Well, don't forget, I mean, Alphabet have got tons of product lines. PPC is just one of them. Yeah. I mean, they've got tons.
But the numbers are significant.
Well, and that's the key. By having those things, they've protected themselves about having a future business. But actually, so the total revenues of Alphabet were approximately $350 billion. $264 billion of that comes from advertising in Google. That means that 76% of Alphabet's total revenue comes from advertising. Now, they don't specifically break out pay-per-click, but when I've done some sort of research on it, I think the general consensus is that it's reasonable to infer that a substantial proportion of that 264 billion in advertising revenue is attained specifically from PPC. It's certainly significantly above things like YouTube and various other things because it's so established. And well, we hear it, day in day out. I mean, I hear about businesses that are spending £30,000 a month on pay-per-click. Yeah. These are enormous amounts of money going there. So that's the big question is, where will this advertising spend go? Because it will go somewhere because people need to bring customers into their business. And if you can work out where it will go, maybe you'll be the next winner.
Well, is it just going to go to the other social media platforms? Because people are spending so long on you. If you look at like the usage of YouTube and the usage of TikTok, for example, and Instagram and Snapchat, is it just going to go that way? But then they are generally talking, aimed at younger people. So where is that maybe 45 plus? Where are they going to gravitate towards?
I guess the key thing you're missing there is that the two business models from an advertising standpoint are completely different. One, Google's advertising model is what's called intention-based advertising. It means that the user knows what they want to buy and therefore is searching to find to buy it. all of the other platforms, you're interrupting people's days all day long. And it's scattergun. You've no idea.
TikTok are trying to push this thing more like YouTube. Where do I find? So they're now trying to push it more into a search engine. And that's what some of their advertising has been. If you, unless you kind of look at some of the adverts that TikTok are putting out, not on TikTok, maybe if you go to the cinema or on a bus stop, things like that, that is much more like they are trying to push it to become a search engine.
I guess the key is that the vast majority of companies, pretty much all of them, will already be optimizing all of those platforms from an advertising spend perspective. They won't just simply throw more money at it unless it gets a better return on investment. And just because search is not getting any more, that it doesn't mean that the reality is the consumer isn't going to those other platforms. Nothing's changing for the consumer. So there isn't a reason for spend to increase in all of those other areas, if you know what I mean.
So what do you think maybe about Amazon taking it then? Because literally I feel like there's nothing you can't buy on Amazon, but obviously there's loads of stuff you can't buy on Amazon. But what if Amazon just replaced Google Shopping?
I mean, it could disappear.
Because that is the number one. But if I want to buy a physical product, now I know we've got services in here, which is a bit different. And sometimes you're researching because you don't understand what you're going to buy yet. But if I want to buy a product, I go to Amazon or Google Shopping. There's no John Lewis, maybe, if I really want something of good quality. But yeah.
I mean, but Amazon already, I'd love to know the revenues on Amazon but people pay pay-per-click on Amazon already. Huge volumes of money.
Yeah.
If you can speak to any e-commerce, they are paying as much, if not more, than they're paying to Google. To Amazon, that's their business model as well. So I think Amazon will remain that. But again, you've got to assume that these businesses are already optimizing, because there is a seesaw with these advertising things between the ROAS and the cost. So you've got to assume in most cases they're already optimizing that. So just throwing more money at it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. There is a world here where this money just disappears because, as a business owner, if you can't deploy that capital somewhere else and get a return on it, you just don't deploy the capital. You've saved the money off your bottom line. Is there a world where it goes back into, non-trackable advertising, such as, kind of poster advertising, billboard, that type of thing? But I don't see that. It's like a real step backwards in the advertising world. So I think it's fascinating. But I feel quite, I'm not going to say confident, because I'm not confident, but I feel like that money's going to disappear quite quickly from Google. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but those numbers will just slowly, as those returns don't happen for businesses, if they're not getting the search traffic on them, they'll just start to deplete their budgets and that starts to disappear.
I agree with what you said, that you think that initially they'll just cancel the ad spend. And I think that would be the initial reaction is, okay, let's just stop using Google pay-per-click. It's not delivering a return anymore. But then I think after 12, 18, 24 months, I think business owners will then redeploy the money somewhere else. And I think that despite us discussing this for 25 minutes, I think we're still no clearer on we should be betting on.
Absolutely not.
To take over Google. And that might be because there is no answer. There is not going to be a new Google unless potentially it's ChatGPT.
Yeah. Unless they crack how they monetize it. Interesting. I think that for business owners here today, the key takeaway for me that you've got to start thinking about is how you position your business and your marketing to be picked up from an AI perspective. Because one thing I think feels like it is for certain is that the search response from any of the AI platforms is so valuable compared to what we used to do in trawling through websites that are served up in an index page, that I can't see any world where it's not that in future.
And this is something that we've been very good at from the start. We have a blog on our page and, we put out a ton of content that's all SEO rich stuff. The podcast goes on the website now.
Yeah.
What else we got on there? We've got the library of resources. We've got Google My Business. We've been putting a ton of information-based content into the world with certain keywords and tag words and metadata and all of that kind of stuff so that it does get picked up by the search engines. Now, what I think we probably need to do after this podcast is made me think there is a difference between search engine optimization and is it SGO they're calling it? Search generative optimization.
Whatever that is,
And that obviously everybody is anybody that's thinking about this previously has been optimizing their website for Google essentially, but now we need to optimize our website for AI. And is it ChatGPT we're optimizing it for? Is it Gemini? Are they the same? Are they different? People are going to have to pick one and go down one route. But yeah, it's definitely something that we need to put on our list of something we need to do, is understand how do we now get ChatGPT to pick us up when somebody goes and searches for show me an accountant that does X, or show me a finance director, whatever it is.
What the bigger worry is that in lots of cases it's picking no one up because it's not revealing the company. It's just ripping your data off and
that's true.
and chucking it back out as an answer. So I think, it's a little bit frightening from a business perspective that has become reliant on digital advertising in a world where that biggest form of digital advertising is about to be completely disrupted. Right, let's move on to this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra.
So this week I've got the Profit Cash Growth Extra. It is doing business meetings on WhatsApp. Now, we, as our standard default system in the business, we use Microsoft Teams meetings. We've got some clients that just hate Microsoft Teams, mostly because they've got Apple laptops or Apple Macs and they just don't like Microsoft products. But we also seem to have some other customers that maybe just have problems using it. I don't know if it's settings on their laptops or settings on their servers, but we've got a couple of clients that use a combination of Apple Macs and Google as their business system, and the two then just seem to not allow people to log on to Teams meetings and things like that. So for those clients, we've started doing WhatsApp meetings.
Interesting.
And you can...
What is a WhatsApp meeting?
It's just like Zoom call or a Teams meeting, but just in WhatsApp, and you can schedule it. So if you go into, I have the app on my desktop, but you can do it on your phone as well. If you go to call somebody, so you go to the call section in the WhatsApp app and then click plus up the top, then it gives you the option to share a link. And so you just copy that link into an email, send it to somebody, schedule your meeting, and then you can join the meeting using that link, exactly like Zoom. You've got all the options of like sharing screens and things like that, the chat in there. It's brilliant. It's so super easy. When somebody says to me, should we just jump on a call now? If they're saying it on WhatsApp, then we just do it on WhatsApp. So it's just taking that, what's always been known as like a WhatsApp video call, just to the next sort of level of it being a bit professional.
Going back to our Google conversation, actually, WhatsApp is so much more prolific than Zoom. Do you think WhatsApp might take Zoom's mantle? Shall I short Zoom as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of Zoom, actually.
I'm not at all.
And I don't...
Well, it's not integrated into anything, so you don't use, it's not like you use Teams, it's integrated into Microsoft, so it's difficult, isn't it? Whereas WhatsApp's integrated into my life.
There's two business systems, I don't use either of them, but there's two business systems that seem to be like the classic for consultants and salespeople, and that's Zoom and Calendly. But I just feel like this is software like that is just going to become so standard in, as soon as WhatsApp allow you to put your calendar in WhatsApp and automatically send meetings or something like that, I'd pay for that.
Yeah.
I'd probably drop Microsoft Teams, because actually for Microsoft Teams, we only use it for meetings. We don't really use the chat function, because a big issue for Microsoft Teams, it works if you're in a big organization, but I can't chat to a customer really easily on Microsoft Teams, which is why we use Microsoft WhatsApp. So I do think WhatsApp
meetings,
is
that's
the future. WhatsApp meetings, that's the extra. Use it. You can put links, share links with people, put them in emails, schedule meetings.
I'm going to try that, Claire, because I use WhatsApp all the time. I didn't even know you could do that.
You use Google Meets, don't you, normally? But that's horrible.
I use Google Meets because that's our infrastructure we use, but I use WhatsApp a lot with the team, so that's great. Well, if you feel like you may have outgrown your current accountant and you would like to chat with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth, remember, as always, you can go to profitcashgrowth.com. You can use the resource library there, lots of tick sheets and help sheets and tick lists, should I say. Please do always just have a look at the previous podcast that we've done. Everything is evergreen, and there's loads and loads of education that we put out there. And as always, if you can rate, review and subscribe to the podcast, and please just send it to one other business owner that you know who might find this helpful. And as always, we will see you again next week.